Hi, everybody. Rick DiClemente along with your host Shelby on my to my left. And nice to have you with us. And welcome all you YouTubers and welcome everybody that's new to the case. And hopefully my voice will be a little stronger this week. I want to take time to thank Claudia and Rick for last week for substituting for me at the very last minute, which is a very nice thing to have. So appreciate that. Tonight we're going to talk about what's in a chart, what's not in a chart. This is a big subject, and it's something I could talk about forever because people think that this is in a chart, and it could be, but it might not, but it may be, but it isn't. Something like that. Here comes Chuck. Anyhow, what does that mean? If you're not well studied, it's very hard to know what's in a chart and what's not. And there are two reasons that people don't get good at astrology. One, they don't study, and two, they only study their own chart. You got to study lots of charts, hundreds, thousands, hundreds, thousands. You don't have to get every detail down, but look at them. And you can go to a place in France called astrotheme.com, and it's a French site, and it's got thousands of celebrities there, with lots of them have the birth time with them. And you can go right there and look at the chart. That's what you need to do. If you want to look up John McEnroe, go look up John McEnroe. If you want to look up Martina Navratilova, go look up Martina Navratilova. If you want to look up Bill Bill Cosby, all different people, different ilks. That's what you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Claudia's on the phone. She's off the show. It says she's been removed from the meeting.
Oh, hold on. Hold on, please. Okay. So the two big reasons that you don't get any better at it is you don't study and you only look at your own chart. Well, look at you, look at your family, look at your boss, look at your relatives, look at people you don't like, look at people you do like, look at everybody. That's how you learn the difference between one chart and another. You're not going to get it by staring endlessly at your own chart. It's just not going to happen. You have to look at lots of charts. So anyhow, I'm going to look at lots of different charts tonight to show you how a chart. Hi, Claudia. It looks like um, yeah, when you look at a chart, it looks like this is saying something to you, and it might be. So it's a real crazy art. It's a crazy science. It just tells you all kind of mixed up things. And when you do it for a long time, you will get better at it. You really will. Okay. So it's good to be back with you this week. You didn't hear my thanks, but I was thanking Rick and Claudia for their helping out last week. I appreciate that very much. Okay, let's just start out with a typical example. I told you go to astrotheme.com to look up famous people, or go to astro.com. Both of them are very highly reputable. They have thousands of charts of all kinds of people. And just go peeking around and look, go peeking around and look. Where you get discouraged is when you look at a chart and you say, I don't know what it means. Well, a whole lot of people don't know what it means. Just get a peek at it, take a look at it, take a snapshot of it. kids say, oh, they got their moon there, they got their moon there, and I got my moon here, and they got the Venus there, and they got the Saturn there. And after a while, you'll start to see common themes. Now, for example, let's take a look at somebody I don't even know who it is. Somebody's got Mars opposite Saturn. Uh, Mars opposite Saturn. Okay, when you look in the books will tell you there's a rather grim aspect. It's an aspect of frustration. It's an aspect of stopping or getting stopped or stopping yourself. And those things can be true. The next thing you want to look at is what is the orb? The orb is how close it is. Is it 1 degree from opposite? Is it 6 degrees from opposite? Because if it's 1 degree, it's really, really powerful. If it's 6, 7 degrees, it's not that powerful. Now, you cannot get anywhere with translating anything unless you know what the planet means, basically, what that planet means, what the signs mean. You just have to know the basics of these signs, how they feel, how they act, how the planets are, how they act. Well, knowing Mars and Saturn, Mars is go, 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 and Saturn is kind of stop and hold it and be cool. Well, you can see right away you've got a natal problem with it, whether it's Mars Saturn conjunct, whether it's Mars Saturn opposite, whether it's Mars Saturn square. You've got a natal problem with Mars Saturn, and that has to do with, and the number one thing I do is I talk to the client. I ask the client questions. Don't try to be a mind reader and a magician and, oh, this is what this means, because you might be right, but odds are you're not. And most people are really a bit of both. Most people are a little frustrated from their Mars Saturn, and Mars Saturn also gives them stamina. It's got a real good side to it, too. Stamina, rock hardness. Okay, say you're looking at somebody with their Mercury and a square to Pluto, and a square to Pluto. Their Mercury, their mind, is square to Pluto. Well, you can see right away, depending on what sign the Mercury is in, the Pluto is going to give it a lot of Scorpio tendencies because Pluto's the ruler of Scorpio. When Mercury squares Pluto, it makes the mind somewhat suspicious. It makes the mind deeper, deeper qualities, deeper digging into things, more of a psychologist, more of a miner. So it can be like you might have a friend who's just suspicious of everybody and everything they do. That could be their Mercury Pluto. Also, you may have a shallow friend who's a certain sun sign that's known for being shallow, and they have Mercury square Pluto, and all of a sudden they're not so shallow because it can add depth to your chart. So charts have all kinds of mixtures of things in them. And don't try to guess and feel that you should be able to guess because you can't guess. Give it a try, give it your best bet, and this guessing that you're doing will get better. It will get better over time, but it really depends on how many charts you're looking at. Okay, let me show you some charts and just show you. I pulled up some people from this group, and I'm just going to show you how this works. Let's look at Waldo. Waldo's not with us tonight. He's somewhere in the Yucatan, but we'll look at his chart anyway. Let's take this off there and let's go back to this. right there. Okay, you can see in Waldo's chart, and I have been losing my voice a lot, and I apologize. Waldo has Jupiter opposite Pluto. This is a very unusual aspect. It's 4 degrees, it's 12 degrees, so it's 8 degrees apart. Jupiter opposite Pluto. Well, Jupiter is the planet of expansiveness, and Pluto is the planet of in depth. So typically, what you get when you get Jupiter and Pluto in trouble with each other is you get power struggles. Most of these aspects mean one thing, sorta, but they can also mean two and three and four or five other things too. That's why you got to get very talented at knowing the different sides of these planets. So we could say, I don't know about Waldo, but I've been around him. I've never noticed any power tripping with him, power struggles with him, but I don't know him very well. And perhaps somebody very close to him gets involved with power struggles with him. Now, another thing that it does the opposite. It makes you deal with power struggles easily. You see, this stuff will drive you nuts if you're trying to look for a specific answer. Jupiter and Pluto, you got a mixture of this expansive energy and this intense, deep energy, and we're not sure exactly what it means. So when you're looking at it and you're looking at the person, don't work too hard at it. Look at it, consider it, taste it, see how it feels. And especially if you see another person that you know that has Jupiter opposite Pluto, look, what do they have in common? Okay. Notice how notice how the Jupiter Pluto is in opposition in this chart and it forms a T-square. So hello Peggy. So let's take a look at that. Okay. Okay, here's his Jupiter opposite Pluto. The Jupiter is really close to opposition to Uranus. This is a much more telling aspect. The Jupiter is at 4, the Pluto is at 5. So this is very, very close. And Jupiter and Uranus, when they're opposite each other, and if you get to know Waldo at all, he's got this high spirit energy, telling you jokes, telling you stories. He's speaking two to three languages, and Jupiter Uranus is all about somebody who's got high energy, maybe even too high for themselves to even handle. So Jupiter Uranus acts very differently than Jupiter and Pluto because Uranus is so much like Jupiter. That's the reason why they're so similar. They're both kind of off the wall and fun and no holds barred. Pluto's not like that. Pluto's very deep and very serious. But we see that Jupiter is opposite Pluto and Uranus. So now it's becoming even more complex. So now we got 3 planets involved. Now we take a look again. Okay. We see that the T-square, the main T-square is 4 and 5, and it comes over right to the sun. Right to the sun at 5. Comes to Mercury at 7. Okay. But the main T-square is the Jupiter opposite Uranus, T-square to Sun in Sag. Well, you don't have to be told that a Sagittarius is very Uranian, is very Sagittarian, is very fun, and let's try this, and let's try that, let's try this. And it's very much the way that Waldo is. He's kind of off the wall and fun loving, and you can also tell there's a serious side to him. So this Jupiter-Uranus, this T-square to the sun, which makes it really lively, is not operating fully. You can see something else in him. For instance, he talks about politics. He is very serious about that. When he talks about a lot of other issues, he gets very serious. So that's not coming from the Jupiter, Uranus, and the sun. That's coming from somewhere else. So we go looking for that. Okay. We see Eris is very close to the descendant. That could have a lot to do with why he's very serious, cause oriented, uh, wanting people to be treated fairly, etc., etc. Take things very seriously. Now look at Saturn. Saturn is at 6, and Saturn is square to Venus. So that's pretty close. That's still 6 degrees apart. And that is Saturn squaring Venus is traditionally somebody who takes things very seriously, maybe even too seriously. And this is the extreme opposite of that Jupiter Uranus. It's really the opposite of it. So it really holds down that Jupiter Uranus by having the Saturn Venus. So I told you there was another factor in this chart that had to hold him back. And that's why looking at so many charts, you start to, a lot of times when I look at a chart, I'll tell Liza, this person's got to have this planet and that planet there. And I haven't even looked at the chart yet, but I can just tell by talking to the person. But that's from reading lots of charts. You just have to look at lots of charts. Now, let's take a look at Chuck here. I got to get Chuck up on the screen here.
Uh-oh.
Chuck up on the screen. Uh-oh. Oh, he says. Let me get this. Okay, now looking at Chuck's chart. Okay, Chuck has an extremely unusual chart. I've seen several like it, but it's so unusual because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets in Leo, and there's a 7th planet real close. So this is very, 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 very unusual. And if you look at it and you try to figure out what does it mean, well, good luck. It's not that simple. It's a very complex symbol. Notice that the moon is up here by itself with Eris. That gives him a very strong moon. And the Saturn can be very strong in Scorpio. And the Saturn is at 14, squaring the sun and squaring Jupiter and squaring Venus. So this Saturn could really hold him back, especially being in Scorpio. But since he's got the moon in Aries and the moon is next to Eris, he gets a lot of strength from that, a lot of fire from that. He's going to hold himself back, but not too much. He's not going to hold himself back too much because moon in Aries is all about the opposite, not holding yourself back. Now, when you see Leo, 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 you don't have to do very much with the chart because you can just turn on the Leo part of your mind and just go crazy with it. Now, I know Chuck for a long time. I don't think Chuck is, matter of fact, I read first for his wife and then I read for him and I said, who are you married to? Because I thought the chart was so outrageous. And I came to find out that Chuck is not that outrageous, that his Saturn does give him a lot of restraint. And the Eris does too, I think, in some ways. But when you normally, and I know other people, I know about 4 other people that have this born around the same day, that have this same conglomeration of planets in Leo. Usually you have somebody that's just off the wall arrogant. really just off the wall arrogant. It's just too much, especially for a male to handle. But that's not Chuck. Chuck's not off the wall arrogant. Chuck has a very strong Neptune, which keeps him from being arrogant. He has other factors in his chart that keep him held back, especially the Saturn square, the Sun, Saturn square, the Venus. So when you look at a chart and you see a certain aspect, don't think you're a bad astrologer because you think it means that, and you don't see that in the person. You're going to have a lot of charts that you look at and you don't see it in the person, and that's okay. Let it be like that. Just let it be. Because as you go around the circle and as you keep translating the different parts and you keep your different attempts at translating each part, you'll start to see mismatching themes, conflicting themes. You'll see one part that's off the wall, one part that's really kind of calm. You see these conflicting themes. So that's why you see these conflicting themes in the person. It's just that simple. Now, some people, I remember reading for a woman once, had 7 planets in Aquarius, including her sun and moon. 7 planets in Aquarius. And boy, I tell you what, I tried and tried and tried and tried and tried, and I could not read for her. Couldn't do it. I mean, sometimes the possibilities are so endless, the chart's so complicated that you just got to give up and let it be. You're not going to get every chart right. Most people are a mixture of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it makes more sense to you when you start to look at the person. But I cannot emphasize enough the number one thing that you need to do is ask the person. Saturn's opposite Mars. Did you have a father that was always keeping you down, holding you down? Oh no, not my dad. He was always up. We were always doing things together. You feel like a fool. Did you have a mother, Saturn opposite the moon? Did you have a mother who was kind of depressive all the time? Did I get out by talking to him? Oh, no, she was real upbeat. She was real upbeat. And you look at other parts of the chart and you'll see it. But after a while, your guesses are going to be not so much guesses. You're going to get better and better and better at this. Now, raise your hand if you know what I'm saying to you. If you experience a kind of up and down, anybody? Some people are muted. Okay.
I don't know. Can you ask? I don't understand the question.
Yeah, ask again. I didn't hear you.
Uh, when you see a certain aspect, for instance, a lot of people that think Saturn opposite the moon means that mom and dad were always fighting because mom is the moon, dad is Saturn. And a lot of times that's true. But don't go out on a limb. Just ask the people, did your parents get along pretty good? Or were they fighting a lot? Just ask them. They'll say, oh, yeah, my God, they were fighting every 5 minutes, just fighting all the time. See? Or no, they weren't. But you're not there to pull magic out of their ear. You're not there to do that. Your idea is to find out what do these symbols mean for them? How are they really acting for them?
Rick,
Yeah.
I have an analogy.
Okay.
there are all kinds of peppers. So if you have a pepper in a recipe, it could be a sweet pepper or it could be hot as hell, burn your throat, you know? So
Yeah, that's
just
right.
because it's a pepper doesn't mean it's like one thing.
That's a very good analogy. Very good. Because what's involved here, frankly, is the astrologer's ego. That's what's going on here. The astrologer wants to get it right and be, oh, look how smart I am. Don't do that. Don't get caught in that trick. Now, sometimes you will see certain things in a chart and you'll know it's true, like Venus and Mars together. You'll know the person is very charming. You don't even have to ask the question. You can look at them and see it. They got a charm about them. You may quietly work in your mind during the reading as to what is their charm like, what kind of charm they have. I mean, even President Trump has Venus Mars together, and he has a certain kind of charm to a lot of people. Not to me, but to a lot of people, he does. So let's keep going on and on and on, because we have so many things to look at, including your peppers. We're going to look at your peppers and see how your peppers are. Okay, Kathy F. Kathy F is our resident Virgo woman. Okay, Kathy. Okay, automatically, where's Kathy F? She disappeared. She on the bottom of the screen. Hi, Kathy. Okay, right away when you got a Virgo woman, you say to yourself, okay, she's probably very neat, probably really good at her job, probably a little bit picky, uh, probably fastidious. And most of the time you say those basic words, and they'll say, yes, okay. And I think that's pretty true for Kathy. Now, let's go deeper into Kathy's chart. Okay, here's Kathy. Now, what do we notice right away? The moon is opposite Chiron exactly. All right. Now, since I believe that Chiron is the ruling planet of Virgos, and since Chiron is in Scorpio, and since it's exactly opposite the moon, we've got a over Virgoized moon. We've got an over Virgoized moon. What does that mean? I told you I worked very hard on the Virgo chapter in my book to the point of assigning two qualities to Virgo that I really believe are true. One is they really care, and two is they are really, or they're perfectionists. What was the other one, Claudia? They really care, and what?
The purity.
Purity, yes. Thank you. I forgot that word. Yeah, purity. Whether it's you're mixing up some kind of milk resume, you know, thing in their kitchen, or whether they're mixing up some woods. They're going to cut this wood and marry this piece of wood with that wood in the workshop, or whether they're working as a nurse and they're having to keep an eye on your different medicines and how they're mixing. This person is a perfectionist. She's a perfectionist. And yes, perfectionism will do you in after a while if you don't keep a real close watch on it. But she's not only getting the perfectionism from the Virgo sun, she's getting it from Chiron opposite the moon. And the moon is in an earth sign. So that means that earth matters when she's making something, when she's stirring something, when she's following some formula. Kathy's a perfectionist. She just is. True or false, Kathy?
True.
True. Okay. Got a short, little, brief answer. Two. Okay.
Let's add efficient to the list of Virgo words.
Yeah, efficient is a very good word also. And you gotta love them because they just care so much. Now, the Virgo perfectionism, of which I've written a lot about, it can drive them crazy. It can be working against them. They have to really watch it because usually as Virgos grow older, they become less perfectionistic. They become less on their own back. Virgo's life is one of getting off my back, getting off my own back. That's what Virgo's about. Allowing myself freedom, allowing myself the freedom to do this and that and get off my own back. Now, one of the things that's very common, Virgos project a lot, like a lot of us do, and they think that a lot of people are criticizing them. They think that somebody's criticizing them, when a lot of times they are, but a lot of times they're not. So they have to watch out for that also. And to be, in other words, the real objective of Virgo is to be accurate, see clearly. But we know if we were, in other words, if we were looking new at Kathy's chart and we were wondering, is she the kind of Virgo that's kind of perfectionistic or not? All we had to see was the moon opposite Chiron, and that tilted it so much additionally towards being a perfectionist that we know our answer right there. See how mixing 2 or 3 or 4 symbols together can help you. Okay, let me go on. Okay, Erica,
I have a basic.
you're breaking up on me, dear.
Have a Vedic Swami who occasionally talks about astrology, and he says it's combining, not combining, but it's like one on top of the other. The word just went out of my head.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right. Yeah, that's
It's
correct.
like you put 1 ounce of this and 1 ounce of that, and and pretty
Yeah,
soon
yeah.
got a lot of stuff there, but they all had to combine with each other one at a time.
That's very much the case, yes. Okay, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the moon Pluto in Erica's chart. The moon and Pluto are sitting 6 degrees apart. All right. Now I can tell you from a lot of experience, Liza has the moon Pluto in Leo. I can tell you a lot. The moon Pluto acts a lot differently with women than it does with men. Compounding was the word, yes. That's right. Moon Pluto can be very, very arrogant in males charged. Can be. And I got lots and lots of them that I could point out to you. Just think that the King Tut, king of the world. I don't see that acting out as much with the women. Sometimes I do see the acting out, but women are much more laid back because I guess just the feminine stamp that's upon them. But
We've been kept down by society, Rick.
well, you're not telling me anything new. Yeah, I got that. Okay, you got the moon next to Pluto. Okay, the moon is in Leo. All right. The moon in Leo is, my mother had a moon in Leo. Moon in Leo is ebullient and fun-loving, and she sang opera. And they're loud, and they're buoyant, and they're life at a party and slap you on the back. How you doing? Okay, that's not the nature of the moon usually, but when you put the moon in Leo, it is. See what we're doing, Chuck? We're starting to combine pieces. Okay, so now we got a relatively mild idea of what the moon in Leo is like. Now you put it next to Pluto. So your mind just starts doing exactly what Erica says. You start compounding it. you start adding Pluto to it. Well, Pluto adds to the intensity because the moon in Leo is already intense because it's fixed fire. Leo sign is fixed fire. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. Pluto, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. So, moon and Pluto, in other words, if you're going to have an argument with Erica, you better do your homework real good because she ain't going to budge easily. She's going to stick to her guns, and she's a Taurus.
It
Okay?
depends on whether I know the topic or not, though.
Well, that's the
I
case.
defer to people who are experts.
If that's the case, and I found you to be surprisingly flexible for your chart, but there is a good deal of stubbornness there, and that's where it comes from. The moon Pluto also gives the moon depth. The moon in Leo is not deep or penetrating or psychological or interrogating is somebody's motive, etc. But the moon next to Pluto is. Pluto wants to know everything. What's really going on behind the scenes? How'd you do that? When did you do it? What time did they stop by? When did they leave? You sure? You sure? So you see, you start to combine. I'm just going to do charts after charts after charts here till you get the idea.
Thank you, Rick.
You are welcome. Let's take a look at let's take a look at Claudia. Okay, another Leo energy. Okay, Claudia, when you look at her chart, I think your chart is very interesting. I've studied it and I think it really is very intriguing. You've got this Mars opposite the moon, and it makes a T-square over to Neptune. And I think that's really strong in this chart. She's got a lot of Neptune, and Neptune is really quite different than Leo's sun. I mean, Leo's sun is very kind and it's loving and it's giving, yes. And so is Neptune. But Leo's sun is going to make sure that somebody makes sure they're the author of that statement. That's a Leo thing, their pride. The Neptune doesn't want the pride. The Neptune doesn't want the credit. The Neptune wants to lay back in the background and be cool. And if you know Claudia at all, you see where she's got that nice blend. She's got a very pleasant Leo blend that blends with the kindness of the Neptune there. Now, in her chart, this happens to be extremely powerful just from my watching it. The Uranus opposite Chiron. These are the two planets that travel together for 37 years from 1952 to 1989. These are the two planets that indicate astrological ability. And she's got them exact. And that's why. And I know when I met her, she said, well, Rick, I just watched all your videos. I said, well, you don't watch 389 of them. She said, yes, I did. Well, good for you, because I can't. Well, anyhow, we saw where she got really intensely into it. And the reason Chiron and Uranus are so famous for such a matter is, remember, Chiron came to us in 77. And in 1977, this symbol is a symbol of alternate healing, alternate ways of healing. And boy, did you start to see that in the 70s. Hey, don't go to that doctor. Go to this healer over here. Hey, go to this card reader over here. In 77, people were coming out of the wall with all these alternate ways of healing, etc. But I have found through asking, seeing and asking, especially if the Chiron and the Uranus are along the angles, the midheaven and the nadir, or the descendant and the ascendant. Claudia's is not, but it's so close it doesn't matter. When they're really close, it gives somebody astrological ability, that ability to understand concepts, that ability to understand the mixture of one archetype with another. That's what astrology is about. What's the archetype? It's the feeling behind a planet. It's the feeling behind a sign. We don't understand why exactly where it comes from. I'm sure Joseph Campbell could tell you with his mythology. But that ability to understand archetypally is what gives you the edge in reading an astrology chart. And frankly, if you don't have something like that, you'll get bored with it and you'll stop doing astrology. You have to have this kind of fire in you from Uranus and Chiron to keep that kind of eternal flame going. Okay. See what else we got in that chart of hers. We got the strong Neptune. We got the strong astrologer there. Okay. Let's take a look at other matters. Okay. Okay, we have Uranus. We have Pluto. Look at Pluto, how it's opposite Eris, which is really powerful, really passionate about women's issues, fairness issues, etc. This is very, very strong. And its outlet is around Saturn in Cancer. So, and also, I guess you could say the Venus. The Saturn Venus in Cancer, let's talk about that. So, the Saturn and Venus is very, very strong, and they're not two planets that get along very well. The Saturn Venus allows Claudia to grin and bear it when she's got tough stuff to do, to pay the bills when she doesn't feel like working an extra hour. She grins and bear it and does the work that she has to do. So Saturn Venus is very disciplined. She's not sour by any means, and that's because of the Leo in her and the very strong Mars. But the Saturn Venus gives her the discipline when she needs it. See, in this, if there's any planet that will mess you up when you're looking at charts trying to figure it out, if there's any planet that will mess you up mentally, it's Saturn. Because people always tend to look at the negative side of Saturn, when Saturn has a very wonderful, good side to it too. You know, it's the one that has rings around it, and it keeps, in the old days, that was the outermost planet. It keeps everything together from flying apart. That's a big deal in astrology. In the old days, Saturn was a big deal in charts, a great big deal. Now, Claudia, I'm interested in how you see your strong Saturn Venus combined with the astrologer's symbol that's there, combined with the Neptune.
Well, it's probably been in the last year that I have realized I have got some trines to that Saturn, because I've always seen the Venus Saturn as something that's like, oh, this is so hard to have a relationship, and I feel so bad about myself
Right.
in my younger years.
You could do that, yeah.
Yeah. And as you know, I'm big into the chart ruler. So Venus is a rules my chart because I'm a Taurus rising, and then you put it next to Saturn, and I just think, oh man, that sucks. But then I realized,
It doesn't suck.
no, you're right. It doesn't at all, but it's the experience, like you're saying, the compounding and really seeing it from different angles. And as you mature, you learn how these things have really helped you along.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you that your Saturn saves you.
Yeah. Yeah,
It does
because
because it keeps you from what?
floating off into space.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
right. Blowing up.
Yeah. No, it's
That's
absolutely,
right.
you're absolutely right. And uh what's happening is that I find that a lot of people, this is my least favorite thing when people do. They go, "Oh, is it good or bad? Oh,
Yeah,
is that good or bad? Oh, is that bad?" And
that's the
and they
worst,
hate my
worst
answer
thing.
because I say it's neither. It is that. And you make it whatever it is that you're going to make it. And they don't, but as
A
you
lot of
mature,
people don't understand it because they're taught that they're in a black and white world.
yeah. And all those things, like Erica said, all those things are true. And it's like an onion. And the Neptune, I didn't realize about the Neptune because I've always, before I got to really serious astrology, I was just looking at the moon opposite Mars, moon opposite Mars, moon opposite Mars. I was confused by it myself, and I live it.
Yeah,
But the square to Neptune, the T square to Neptune, I could see that as at one point, really, I struggled with it, and now I really see that that has also been another really helpful part of
that's right.
the chart.
You have a nice blend. Okay, well, thank you, Claudia. I want to call up a chart, which I didn't because I'm not used to her being here. I'm going to go get Susie's chart. Hold on, everybody, since she's new and I have to pick on her. Okay, Susie, let's take a look at her. Okay. Susie's chart. We got a Scorpio with Venus and Neptune and Mercury. The sun is 1 degree from Neptune. That's very, very powerful. Venus is far away, 16 degrees away. Mercury is 1 degree away. So your Neptune is really, really strong because it's right between the midpoint. It sits at the midpoint of Sun and Mercury. So that tells me your Sun Mercury is your core center of your thinking. And when Neptune's right there, that means that Miss Susie has one very strong imagination. And she
It's very
always
true.
had. She
Yeah.
always had, and people look at her like, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Going in the closet and going float off somewhere?" And Susie just says, "Never mind, you wouldn't understand it. I'm floating in my own float here. It just leave me be."
Yeah, it definitely colors my daily existence, and I try to build time for myself every day to have that space to
That's
just
right. And you got the moon in Aries, which I really like because it's opposite Uranus and it gives you fire. This gives you ego. This gives you ego, me, me. While this is up there saying, not you, not you, not you, everybody else. Think about everybody else, everybody else. Well, this is the opposite. So this can be a good counterbalancing aspect with the moon, especially with the moon and Venus both opposite Uranus. Very powerful, strong sense of self. Now we see a T square of Venus opposite Saturn, even though it's 8 degrees, and a T squares to Mars. So Venus and Saturn, T squares to Mars. Now remember, Venus and Mars are the two planets that have to do with being charming. And here's Saturn sitting there stubbornly retrograde. So I really do have to ask about your father. What was dad like?
My father was a very quiet person. He was someone who had tremendous amount of waters running deep.
Taciturn.
Yeah, very taciturn
Okay.
and a very gifted person, but very humble at the same time. And a
What
person
sign
that
was he?
he was a Cancer sun
Okay, well
and Scorpio moon.
that makes it even more so.
Yeah.
So here sits Susie with a Venus Mars square. And we know I've got the sorry about that. That was my telephone company calling me back and wondering if my internet was working. Okay, now Venus and Mars very complex to talk about. Very complex. You could open up your mythology books and get lost in it for a long time talking about Venus and Mars. Very charismatic, but one's square to Saturn, one's opposite Saturn. Ooh, what's that do? What's that do? It means that she's charming, that's for sure, with the Venus and Mars, but she's very careful about how she uses the charm. Okay? She's also got Neptune right there between the Sun and Mercury, so she has a great propensity to be careful not to hurt somebody's feelings. So she's very charming, but she's very careful about it. Very. What does that mean to you, Susie?
Yeah, and I always attributed that just to the Scorpio energy. But it
That's the
is true
Saturn.
that yeah,
That's the Saturn.
the containment of my energy and being
Hold
careful
on.
about
I'm sorry.
oh sure.
I turned the phone off. Okay. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Yeah, just the
See,
containment.
all along you've been thinking that the containment had to do with the
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah, and I was thinking it was more of a
It might,
like the sign that it was the planets acting together.
right?
But you know, I think as I've matured and have gone through my life's, journey, I have a little less inhibition about that. But it's like always that it's a very much like a push and pull between how much to say, what to say,
That's right.
and like weighing speaking your truth versus maintaining peace and harmony between other, with
Okay,
others.
well, with the Saturn there, remember, you may not have been tuned into this show for long, but I replaced the word Saturn everywhere with the words be careful. Or no, I'm sorry. With the words make sure. To me, Saturn is the words make sure. Okay, so how can you be charming? I'm asking you a question. How can you be charming, but make sure that you're charming in a way that works out for everybody?
Well, you probably in the long run can't.
I don't know. I don't know.
Eventually you will make a faux pas of some kind. But I think a lot of it is just the ability to read people.
I think
And
I think a lot of people would report that come around you, they would report back to us that she's very charming and she really works hard at it. She, and there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah,
Nothing wrong
yeah,
with that. She's very charming, but she's very careful about it. She's not flippant about it.
yeah.
I
And
think
I've
it's a very good thing, Susie.
Yeah, and I've had people say, "Oh, you seem like you're really strong, but you're guarded or you're
Yeah,
contained and that kind of thing." And it's like, yeah, maybe I am, but part of it is the like my moon is low in my chart, right? And that feeling of wanting to protect that emotional
yeah,
space,
right.
and with the Uranus conjunction, Uranus opposition, there's always that impulse to like go beyond the borders of like maybe what Saturn's telling me to do.
Where did
Yeah.
you learn all your astrology from? You're pretty good.
Oh, I've been studying it for a few years.
I see you commenting on a lot of the things I write through the years. I've seen your name out there. Well, that's great. That's wonderful.
I got a question
Yeah.
for mostly for Susan. Did you happen to discover that in your early years there was adjustment to learning how to attract things and how to go after them, to learn the finesse of how to deal with the conflicting Venus Mars energy? Because I'm finding that someone I'm working with who has shifts in their Venus Mars and a Saturn involvement, totally in different aspects than what you're dealing with, but it has that push pull and needing to adjust. Does that resonate for you?
I see that more with the things that I'm trying to do recently with my athletics and the effort that it's taken to get myself into like I have Pluto in very close to a lot of stuff going on right now. And it's going to be moving into my first house, and I'm going through like a lot of thought and planning with body composition and things I want to achieve. And it's taken a great deal of effort for me to do that. So that's part of the effort, but the attraction part of it has been much more of a like when I started my art practice about the same time in conjunction with this other thing. And with that, what I had to do basically is I had to sit myself down and meditate and just basically ask my soul like what it needed and what it wanted. And I got paint. And I'm like, that is really weird. But it has been a tremendously healing and beneficial practice for me
Wow.
to do.
Why do you say it's weird?
I didn't ever conceive of myself as being someone artistic or
Mm.
creative in a way that could be manifested physically, if that makes sense.
Well, you can thank your muse for that one. That's a good one. Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Susie. This has been
sure. Yeah. Thank
enlightening.
you.
Let's go on to Renate. Hold on, please. Good evening, Chuck. We'll see you later.
See you next time.
Okay.
Take care.
We're going to Renate. Okay, Renate. Now I don't have a monitor because they kept calling me. You can't see the chart, can you?
Yeah, we see it, but you didn't make it big.
That's why I got to put it on the iPhone. But they wouldn't stop calling, so let's see. This ought to do it right now. Okay?
Good.
Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
All right. You got to put it on there twice. Okay. Renate. Look how the Neptune sticks out. The Neptune sticks out. Very positive. The Neptune opposite the Jupiter Venus is a very nice aspect to have. You can get a little bit lost, a little bit, with being too nice to people. Get a bit lost, the over compromising, etc. But overall, it's a very nice aspect to have that keeps you soft. It keeps you loving. Okay,
Yes.
that really helps with your Mars Moon because the Mars moon is exact. They're both at 18 degrees, and that Mars can make your moon really pretty moody. Okay,
Yes,
your moon can be moody from that Mars opposition, and
I
then
am.
the T square up to Saturn in Aries. Okay, so what happens with you? Very interesting. I've seen this, but I've not understood it. You'll go from being very mild, very loving, to being very harsh, saying something sharp about yourself. Then very soft and loving, then back to that. Those two go back and forth. And
Exactly.
I don't think there's anything that can be done about that. I think that's just who you are.
Yes, it is. But I have always trouble with women. No, not always, but a lot in my life.
You have a lot of trouble with women. Why would that be?
Why?
Yeah,
Because Mars, I think Mars, it's Mars moon, Mars moon.
well, let's talk about it in real terms. What happens with the women?
I found out most of them nearly my whole life were envy, and then they pick at me. They try to make me small, get me down. I
Oh,
have it on a daily basis here in the house at the moment, just trying to make me wrong.
oh, I see. Now, when you were growing up, what sign was your mother?
Oh, she was Pisces, but she has all her planets in the 10th house. She was very Saturnian.
Was she always trying to make you wrong?
Oh, yeah, all the time,
Okay, well, now we
whole
know,
life.
now we know where that comes from.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I like your Venus, Jupiter, Neptune. I really do. I think that's really saves you. And even the
yeah.
Mars, what I would learn from that, your bark is not as big as your bite.
That's right.
It's just it's just a playful bite, really. Let's take a
Yeah.
look back in the chart again.
But what I suffer my whole life is this Mars Saturn square. I always have accelerator and brake at the same time. I
You
want to
get the gas
accelerate
gas
gas.
on at the same time as the brake.
Ugh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've got it myself in my chart. Well, Mars Saturn, it also look how strong your Mars is. Your Mars is sticking out almost like a bucket handle. And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
Saturn is squaring. So where can you say in your life that you've been saved by being cautious with your brake, being cautious with your gas pedal?
A lot. Actually, a lot.
What does that mean?
I have been in situations in my life and have been saved very miraculously, but I think there is more Neptune.
Oh, you've been saved miraculously. I see.
Yes.
Oh, now that's a good analysis, Neptune. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting chart. And to say you're a Taurus, I would never guess.
No, I my whole life I don't felt like a Taurus, but now I do. Now I see my stubbornness and not wanting to change.
Boy, Tauruses can't stand it, can they? Can't stand it. Okay, let's go over to Susan now. Hold on,
Thank
please.
you.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go to Susan's chart. So I gotta put it on there again, right?
Well, it's up there.
Yeah, but it's gotta be
Yeah,
big.
second time it
Gotta
goes
be
big.
big, and I don't have a monitor now. Now you got it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I don't know why they do that, but they do. And you got Pluto opposite Mars. It's 8 degrees. That's pretty far. You got a T square to Neptune from Jupiter, Uranus. Well, I really like this. This is not even looking at Chiron and Capricorn, just looking at these two wild guys down here. These two wild guys are definitely in sync with the moon and the sun.
Huh.
You have four wild guys: Sun, Moon, Jupiter, Uranus. But the Jupiter Uranus gets squared to Neptune. So what I like about this, Sagittarius have a way of just saying, what the heck? Hey, what the hell? But they smile when they do it and they get away with murder. They're really, really good about smiling when you're sitting there thinking, oh boy, did she put her foot in her mouth? But she didn't. So I think the Neptune can serve you very well because the Neptune shows your deeper meaning is one of benevolence. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Did you know you had four wild guys in your chart?
Um, I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that
Four.
Jupiter and Uranus are very much like, you know, Steve,
Yeah.
two wild and crazy guys.
And the sun and moon, and the sun and moon, yeah.
Mhm.
That's four of them. Four wild and crazy guys. But that
Yep.
Neptune really helps out because it does give you sensitivity and would help you greatly with your readings.
Right. Yeah. Well, that is the grand trine, right? It's loose, but it's a grand
No,
trine.
it's not the grand trine, it's a T-square.
The Neptune Mars moon.
The the Neptune, the Neptune Mars moon is the grand trine, yes.
Yeah.
I was looking at the Neptune square to these two. Now, you've got a very strong, we talked about this many times, you got a very strong Saturn Venus squaring the ascendant, and that really changes things a lot.
And
Because
Saturn transiting is, isn't it right about 15 Aquarius right now?
it's at 17 Pisces.
Oh,
I
17.
see.
Oh, yeah, it's squaring my sun.
It's going to,
Okay.
yeah, it's going to square your sun. But what I'm interested in knowing is what does the Saturn Venus do to your ascendant? See the square?
Um, with an Aquarius ascendant, I tend to come off a little bit aloof. And I think mostly I just don't like to be pinned down, particularly in relationships.
Yeah,
I don't want to be caught.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Somebody told me the other day, she said, boy, that exit sign is your best friend. I said, you got that.
I really think that Saturn does you a lot of good. Why? Because those four wild guys can really be pretty wild. And with Saturn right next to Venus and square to that ascendant by 1 degree, I think that Saturn really helps you.
Stabilize,
Yeah,
stability.
when you need additional stability or reserve. No, Susan, don't say that. Okay, I won't. That's the Saturn.
Yeah, growing up, I had a hard time sticking to anything. And even now, I get so excited by every new idea that it's hard to follow through with the old ones.
It's very, very much your sun and moon. Yeah, very much. You know, this is what Trump has an opposite. Trump has this oppositely.
Right.
He has the moon in Gemini and the sun in Sagittarius. No, sun in Gemini, moon in Sagittarius.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you, Susan. Let's move on.
Thank you.
We got to do Linda P. I gotta get this on the screen again. Ah. Okay, now we got a big chart. Linda, you might look in the books when you're early in astrology, and you might look and see if 4, 5, 6 planets square the Uranus in this chart. And what does that tell you when you read about a really super active Uranus like I have? What does that tell you?
Well, I think it might have something to do with the fact that I'm never satisfied with the knowledge I have. I mean, it's like whatever I'm looking at what's the next thing, that
Good idea. Yeah.
and I don't mean that I'm not satisfied. It's just that once I sort of get a grounding in this level of knowledge of something, I'm ready to go on to I want to blow that up and get on to the next thing.
Let me add something to that and see if this fits for you. When you have a really strong Uranus, you're always looking at the further ramifications. What are the further ramifications? What does this mean? What could this mean? What you say this and you say that, but did you think of this could happen too? That's what Uranus is really about. It's about ramifications.
That's 100% how my mind works.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, when you read these early books that you were reading, it's not going to tell you that.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah. That's why you have to understand the archetypal nature of Uranus. And the archetypal nature of Uranus is to stay up in high mentality, high mentality. Here comes John, just got off the road. Stay up in the high mentality and figure out all the ramifications of all this. Plus, you're a Libra mind to begin with. So that fits very well.
Well, it annoys other people though, because by the time, especially since I'm running a program, by the time everybody catches up to where I was before, I'm already gone. I'm down the road with another. I mean, I'm thinking another level. I'm thinking another idea. I mean, I can never teach the same material more than maybe 3 sections, and then I have to
Yeah,
change.
that's the Uranus in you. Yep.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, that's definitely what that is. Well, thank you very much, Linda.
Welcome.
You're welcome. Let's get to John. John, and then we'll get to Rick. John, we'll get you unmuted. And let's get your chart up here. Okay, John, welcome aboard. We're talking about things in the chart that are they really there or are they not there? Just looking at a chart can really fool you.
I think they're all there.
Yeah, they're all there somehow, aren't they? Let's get you up on the screen here. You think they're all there? That's a mouthful. Let's get this on the screen. Okay, so when you looked at your chart in the early days, John, what is it that fooled you?
I didn't even notice I had a trine between the moon and my sun. Like, I mean, I guess it was just so like obvious. And like one day I woke up and I looked, it's like, oh wait, I've got this really, really tight trine between like not even like 8 minutes.
Yeah, that's really strong, huh?
Yeah, super
Very,
strong.
very powerful. Very, very good. Between 2 earth signs. Wow.
Yeah,
You're not gonna knock John off the top of the mountain. Let me
not
tell
very
you that.
easily.
I was married to this aspect, and boy, she was very solid because of that. Okay, let's take a look here. course, you don't see Eris opposite Pluto in the early
I
book.
know, I know. Well, that's the other thing that threw me. It's like, and Eris conjunct my Mercury. Like, I mean,
Eris conjunct your Mercury. Well, let's talk about that. I'm sure the books are full of misgivings there. What do you think Eris is like when it's next to Mercury?
I mean, I think it definitely colors my way of communicating. I think I do have both thinking and communication.
It makes it how?
I feel like I always like, um, as I've reflected on it, like I feel like there is this thing that I have about supporting people, communicating about issues, people who are neglected, who lack,
Not being unfair, right?
yeah, not supported, like left out, downtrodden.
Yeah, well, that's where that comes from. Plus, those two square the ascendant.
Yeah, and there's like a righteous anger sometimes that comes with it, though, but it's not like a
Yeah.
hot anger. It's like more like a cool kind of, like, yeah, I see this. This is a problem. Let's do something about it.
Well, look at this. Look at this Mercury, Eris, Pluto, ascendant, descendant. This is one hell of a grand cross you got. So I've told you that many times in the past about how the Mercury Pluto is a really dominant theme in this chart.
Yeah.
What do you think about your sun next to Chiron?
I think it's also colored my life too. I mean, I think I've always kind of felt like a loner. I mean, until more recently in my life when I think I've started to work towards healing that. I think that started with me. It wasn't other people, it was me.
Do you feel Virgo traits from the Chiron?
Oh yes, very much so. Do a bit of an eye for detail.
And then you got this Sun Uranus. You get this T square to Mars in Leo. Whoopie doo, that's a good one.
That was a powder keg when I was younger, before
Oh
I
yeah?
started processing my emotions.
You had to watch out, huh?
Yeah, that was.
So how did your Saturn come to help you?
I mean, I feel like it's I've read about like people who have like two things in, the same sign in the same house, especially when it's Mars and Saturn. I feel like it's this constant, like, and you told me this even once, Rick, very much like, and this is my second house, right? So money comes. Don't have any problem getting it with the Mars, but then Saturn's like, no, we got to like, stop and, like hold on to it for a second. And Mars is like, no, 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 go spend it, go spend it, go spend it, go spend it. Sarah's like, nope, I'm putting on the brakes, or you don't have any. We gotta
That's the
stay back and
truth.
pay the bills. Back and forth.
That's the truth. Okay, John. Well, thank you. We got one person left. We're gonna do.
Thanks,
Thank
Rick.
you much. We're gonna do Rick here, and Rick, of course, knows a lot about his chart. But let's. Well, I gotta do that again. Okay, let's go get Rick's chart. Huh. Where did you go, Rick?
I'm still alive.
I know, but see
Oh,
when I lose my monitor, what happens to me?
yeah.
Uh, okay, here's your chart. So what gave you fits in the early days, Rick?
Pardon me?
What gave you fits in your early days of looking at your chart and reading books?
Oh. It's been a long time. I don't remember being stumped back then. It's been you know how long it's been since 77.
Yeah, all three of us were at the same time.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, let's look about this differently then.
Yeah.
Well, when you read it in the books about Saturn opposite Uranus, and it's 3 degrees, it talks about opposing types of archetypes. One's conservative, one's liberal, one is rational, one's irrational. How have you found through the years that your Saturn and Uranus really are?
Well, I do recall maybe in 5th grade talking about it, that liberal, irrational Uranus, reading a biography of a South American revolutionary and wanting to lead a revolution.
Well, you're on the right show.
And I've tempered that quite a bit. I still like the idea of having revolutions around, but I'm a little calmer about it.
I got the same aspect. This has to do with your ability to be a little bit radical, and that Uranus is tamed down being in Virgo, and that Saturn is tamed down by being in Pisces.
Yeah, I think Saturn in Pisces had, with Saturn having such strong constructs of boundaries and Pisces having such weak boundaries,
Yeah,
it makes probably Saturn in Pisces one of the easier ones to navigate.
I think you're probably pretty right, and it really is acting like a bucket handle too.
Oh, yeah. I always saw that as the bucket handle. I mean, back then we didn't have Eris to look at.
Yeah, well, we got it now. Nobody's looking at it. They better start. Another thing you got very strong in this chart, very strong, I see it in you, is the Neptune square the ascendant.
Yes.
That's a very nice aspect to have.
Very strong attraction for the mystics and mysticism.
Okay, everybody, we done did it. We did another 389. 389. Yeah, we're gonna get to 400 pretty soon. Thanks to everybody. Thank you, YouTubers, for tuning in.
Thank you, Rick.
Good
You,
night.
Rick.
Thanks,
Good.
everybody.
Take
Shelby
care.
says good night.
Bless you all.
Big
See you next
blessings,
week.
everyone.
So much.
Good night.